Good.
Have a good night.
You too. Thank you.
Mary.
Good night.
Yep. So let's go ahead and call it to order at 6:03. And seeing there's nobody else on here, does anybody have any public comment? And next up is approval of minutes. Marshall sent out the minutes for April 29th earlier today. Everybody get a chance to look at those?
I'm good with those, Glenn Hathaway.
Dave Perry, I'm good with them too. I read through them.
All right, then wasn't somebody offer me up a motion?
I'll
To
make a
approve.
motion that we approve them.
All right, motion's been made to approve the minutes of April 29th as written. Second? I'll
Glenn
second.
Hathaway, second.
All right, Glenn Hathaway, second. Any questions, comments about the minutes? Seeing
Glenn
none,
Hathaway, no.
Okay, well, let me call the roll. Glenn?
Yes, excuse me, no, I have no issues.
No, as far as voting, are you in favor?
Yeah, yes, I am.
Dave,
Yes, I am.
Marshall,
Yes,
and Bill Johnson, yes. Okay, we'll dispense of that. And then next up was under new business. Does anybody have any new business other than what I sent out?
oh, let me just ask, the meeting minutes of, or the meeting of April 22nd, that didn't seem to find its way to the live viewing. In other words, it did.
It's not there?
Can't. No, I can't go back and review it and create minutes because, admittedly I wasn't there, but then again, it's not shown on the.
That happened with the meeting that I missed. The same thing happened to me. So I will get a hold of somebody and make sure that they get loaded. And now it won't be until Monday because nobody's around, but
No.
I'll get them loaded so that you can go on and do that.
Yeah, it's just so that I can do the minutes, that's all.
Okay. Anybody have anything else? Okay, then let's talk about the draft meeting schedule that I put together. I was working on the one for the Board of Selectmen and I thought about it and I said, I'm honestly not interested in meeting a couple or every week for the course of the summer. So this is my personal preference. Certainly, I'll do what everybody else wants to do, but I thought we'd, take a crack at it next week and then, back it off a little bit and then only once in July and August and then pick it back up in September.
Yeah, I'm in favor of this.
One of the things that I talked to Brian Monday, so we still don't have a contract with General Code. He's found out, or he's confirmed that the $12,000 grant that we got can be used to pay for it. So that means he's got to come up with the $3,000. And he's a stickler on not issuing contracts until he knows where the money's coming from. So like I told him, I said, at this point, we know we're going to do it. We can still proceed here doing what we're doing and not really delay the process at all. So we'll, we're going to be obviously coming up on the end of the fiscal year, so we'll know where the money's going to come from. I'm not going to push him on it. So then so if everybody's okay with the schedule, then that's what we'll plan on doing. And, we'll go from there. Okay. Next up is going to be the chapter review. And we're on, I believe, 22, which is water use restriction. I actually called Mary Calandrera about this today because as I'm reading through this, we already have a water ban in place, and I guess DEP issues that. I don't know if that's the state or the feds or who it is, but just reading through there, I guess we don't have a ban, we have a water supply conservation going on. But based on what I'm seeing, there are specific regulations of things that people are supposed to be doing. And once again, I don't think we enforce any of it. We just throw a sign out there that says, yeah, water ban, and that's the beginning and end of it.
In looking at the statutes that were listed in that bylaw. It doesn't appear that any of the state statutes or regulations actually mandate that water restrictions be issued. It's more up to the town to adopt their own bylaws. And, I've already gone through a lot of these and that we're going to discuss and made some edits. And one of the things was that one of the recommendations of DEP was that the town adopt its own, water use restriction related bylaw, which obviously we've done. So I think it's just a matter of incorporating, reviewing it, and incorporating the correct references to state law.
That's interesting, Marcia, because Mary used to work at water and sewer, so I was talking to her about it today. And her explanation to me is that it's mandated by DEP. You have everybody in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has to do it. And I said, I don't get that.
I don't think that's true. It's guidance and policies. It's not a regulatory requirement, as far as I can see, based on the statutes that are referenced in the bylaw.
Interesting. I mean, and honestly, part of me doesn't really care, but the part of me that does care is that if we're not going to pay any attention to this stuff, then why the hell do we have it?
Well, true. And that's, what I think what happens is, that the state, it has the drought management plan, which is only a few years old. It has water conservation guidelines, which are relatively recent. And every now and then it as climatic conditions require, it issues a notice that, we are in a drought in this, that, or the other region. And that's where, and therefore you should, per policy, municipalities and industries and whomever, institute these practices. But I don't think they're mandated. They're just, they're just something that, the towns should.
Well, guidelines.
Yeah.
Yeah. As I'm reading through this, when it talks about water users and water customers, if I'm reading this correctly, it only pertains to people on the water system.
That's true, because for those of us like me, you, whatever, that have wells,
we have our own system. Yeah.
We have our own system. And if we want to suck it dry, well, hey, there it goes.
Okay.
One of the issues, though, this happened, we had a couple of calls from the Board of Health, is someone put a pool in and they tried to fill it up, and they were on the wells on the same street, and they basically drained the aquifer in the neighborhood. Because they filled the bill, they didn't bother to call the pool truck of water. No, but people don't know. Well, how much water, you've got a pipe in the ground and people think it's forever. It's like the ocean. They don't understand what they're draining out. So that's been an issue. And then to address, as far as enforcing this, it's almost impossible. Even when you read through this, it's almost, you get the neighbor who calls on another neighbor who's watering when it's 90.
Yeah.
The signs are up downtown saying water restriction, water ban. And what they don't understand is what you had brought up, Marshall, is that people who are on wells it's not really, it's typically not, it's not applicable to, it's based on the water system for the town. But it's still an issue. I think for all these, it's educating the public. Okay, it goes back to our snow removal that, Bill, you brought up a good point. In September, October, put it on the website. Don't push snow in the street. We say it every year, but you have to remind people. With this restriction, Marshall, what you just brought up, it's always going to be an issue. But if we can help educate people, and the people who are going to take notice of that and be conscious of, you are draining the water system within your, you could run out of water. Okay, and I don't think people really understand that. So
No, I mean, you may stay cool in the pool, but beyond that.
beyond that, yep. So anyway, so that's that. So again, Bill, I've gotten calls, but I don't really have anything to enforce that other than, we've got here the town through its water and sewer commission can declare a water ban, but I'm not sure unless the water sewer commission was on the same call. They go, what do you guys do? They must get calls.
Yeah,
Okay.
they do. I don't know if they've even voted on something like this.
Yeah.
It sounds like, somebody gets a letter and out goes the sign May 1st, and, that's the beginning and end of it.
Right. Yeah.
So,
So this is, as I think we have another meeting with the board, water commission, water and sewer commission, and is this what's happened to you in the past, and then going forward, maybe they might have a suggestion. But
okay.
I think without the police knocking on someone's door and saying, you got to turn off your lawn hoses, you can't, there's a water ban. So I don't know, Dave, have you
Yeah,
run into this?
we,
Yeah.
I'm sure the police aren't going to do that. So,
I know, but part of this is, a lot of people put a bylaw which empowers the police to go out. It states it's under its police powers to protect public health. Yeah, I guess it's not under its police power. This is a tough one. Who's gonna? Yeah, as soon as you walk away or drive away, the hoses are back on. So whatever that is. So I'd be interested in talking to the Water Sewer Commission and see what their reaction. What's been going on. So.
As is the case of most of these other bylaws too, there's also a penalty section in here,
Right.
with fees and things like that. So.
Yeah.
All right. Does anybody have any other comments about this particular chapter?
Is something like these, everything we've been through, and you've talked about getting rid of the fines. Is this something, legal needs to review anyway? That can we really put that in there? And who's backing this up? The town.
Well,
So
Yeah,
I think it's legal to put them in there because I think this has been looked at a number of times before. For me, the question is it the smart thing to do? Or should it be handled in another manner? So as we go through this process, essentially, as I understand it, once general code gets this thing, they're going to take it and they're going to recodify it as it is.
yeah, okay.
And that's the first step to get it formatted the way we want it. And then when we start the second phase, that's when it actually will go through legal review through their folks, along with, with us and changes and things like that. That's where the legal review is going to happen on that second phase.
Yeah. In your conversations to date with other towns, Bill, has anybody brought this up, or have you brought this up? How are they enforcing?
I have not specifically talked to them about things like that. I did, like the lady in Templeton, her last name is Harris.
Yeah, okay. All right.
I kept her contact information because that's, again, we can go in and look at theirs and see how they address it. Maybe nobody else thinks it's a problem and they left them in there.
Yeah. Okay.
One of the regulatory references that's cited in the water use bylaw, Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40, Section 21, is entitled Bylaws of Towns. Purpose. Towns may make such ordinances and bylaws not repugnant to law, as they may judge most conducive to the welfare, blah, blah, blah. And they list 20, about 22 or 24 different categories under which bylaws can be created. But in the end, it states that the penalty for violation of an ordinance or bylaw under this section shall not be less than $100, no more than $300. So I think that somewhere along the line, there are state regulations that indicate, how much you can fine people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think that I think as we've discussed before, that it would be helpful to probably have a separate set of penalty fees, not included in the bylaws, but a separate
Like an appendix or something?
an appendix or yeah, an attachment that, you know, that the bylaws can reference as a fee per the schedule included in blah.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that makes more sense because it's a lot easier to change a fee schedule than it is to go change a bylaw.
Well, yeah, I think the fee schedule, maybe you'd only need a public hearing as opposed to the bylaw, you need town meeting.
Well, even if you had to go and change the fee schedule, you could go through and change a bunch of them with one warrant article, change them all instead of having to go through the public hearing process and all that with it.
For each individual bylaw.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because in the penalty section of ours, the first fine is $50 and subsequent violations are $100.
Yeah, I think all of that just needs to be, you know, pulled out of all these bylaws and a separate appendix, whatever.
Well, we can't be the first ones that have thought of this, so I'm sure
No,
once we get the general code, we'll be able to get some direction from them.
right.
Okay, anybody have anything else?
Glenn Hathaway, no.
Okay, then let's jump on to 23, which is unregistered motor vehicles or trailer regulations. So this one is particularly troubling for me. I've got the whole thing highlighted. And I don't know if, because when we did I keep calling it the blight bylaw, but that really wasn't what it was called. When we tried to pass that thing, we specifically tried to deal with some situations like this, particularly with trailers, unregistered motor vehicles, things like that. You know, downtown, like on Pleasant Street, somebody down there has got a 43-foot tractor trailer parked on their lawn, using it as storage. And, you know, part of me says, okay, I guess they can do that. But the other part of me says, that looks like hell. And, you know, what impact does that have on your neighbors and things like that? It's one thing if you're, you know, you got 10 acres and it's out behind your house in the woods or something like that. But literally when we're trying to clean up downtown, then, you know, so I'm sure everybody can talk about instances where there's homes that have multiple cars out there that are unregistered and we don't do anything about it. So.
Well, my comment was that I think we need to go back and look at whatever the verbiage we had for the junk sellers and secondhand ordinance, where we looked at, you know, enclosed versus in the open, and see if there isn't some commonality between those two bylaws.
Okay. Dave, you got anything on this one?
Well, I've actually got quite a bit of personal experience with this on
Good or bad?
from a commercial property that I own. I had rented it out to a guy, and he had put, I think, 14 trailer boxes out back. The property was zoned industrial commercial, and he had an issue. One of his cars there rolled down the driveway and knocked over the fire hydrant. Obviously, the fire department got involved. In the fire department, they didn't know what's back there, because if you've ever been into my property, you can't really see any of it, just a very small part of it from the road. You've got to go up in there, and then there's 3 acres of a big field out back there. So a lot of people don't even know what's back there. So the fire department was just looking around there and said, hey, what's in those trailers? And I wasn't there at the time, but my tenant said, none of your business. That didn't fly real well with the fire department. So when and he refused to let him look in there. So when I finally got wind of it, I said, why wouldn't you let the fire department look in there? What's in there that you don't want them to see? And he said, it's my own personal property. I don't sell anything. I collect Ford parts and it's all my own personal property. And I said, look, you got to understand the fire department's point of view. This man, if there's ever a fire down here, he's going to have to send his men in there. And he's going to want to know what's in there. Someone could die if you've got used motor oil or something in there and it blows up. You've got to let these people take a look in there. And he said, no, I'm your tenant. You don't have any right to look in there either. And I said, no, wait a minute. This was getting out of hand. The guy's name was Mike. And it really turned into a huge ordeal because you don't tell the fire chief, it's none of your business, get off my property, and expect him to just say, okay, and not do anything about it. He wouldn't let it go. He followed through with it to the end. He tried to take the guy to court. He involved Debbie Phillips in it. And this guy was refusing to deal with him at all. So finally, what they did is they said, well, let's go after Dave. He's the owner of the property. And and they said that he was running a business, but I knew from personal experience he wasn't selling anything because people would go in there and try to buy a fender for a pickup truck and he'd refuse to sell it. The guy was just a hoarder, but unfortunately he hoarded old Ford pickup trucks. So they sent me a letter saying that I was allowing an illegal business to go on there, and that I was going to get fined $100 a day per vehicle if I didn't do something about it. So I went to my tenant, Mike, and said, okay, this is coming to a screeching halt right here and right now. I'm not doing this. I'm not fighting this battlefield. I'm simply not doing it. Either let the fire department look in there or get all these things out of here. It's as simple as that. I mean, not only am I a landowner, I try to be a responsible citizen in the town of Ashburnham. I'm also the chairman of the zoning board of appeals. And I've got this zoning violation looming over my head. If I don't know better, I got no reason being on this board. You got to get these things out of here, Mike. And it went on and on and on. But finally, I told him that if he didn't get all that stuff out of there, I was going to call scrap it and say that he was illegally trespassing on my property, and I was going to have all that stuff towed out of there. And he told me I couldn't do that, and I said I am doing it. And I'm doing it June 1st. That's the end of the story. I'm not going to fight the town on this on your behalf. But eventually, that's what ended up happening. He got ordered by the town to get all of his stuff off of there, and he eventually did it. He was a little behind schedule, but he did get it done. I don't know where he is now, but he's gone from Ashburnham. So there is laws, bylaws, and fines that can be imposed. I know because I was on the receiving end of it for a while there. So if there is unregistered motor vehicles it also describes trailers as well. It says motor vehicles or trailers, and there is an avenue that you could take to get those removed or fine someone $100 per day per vehicle. So there is some laws in effect that actually they work. They certainly spurred me into action, that's for sure.
Yeah, as I'm reading through there are some things that you can do in there, but again, it comes back to the same thing. What are we doing on enforcement? And I think the answer is nothing.
Well, I know that the guy that somebody, I think from Rutland or something, he bought the old Lombard property. And apparently the guy has a habit of buying property and storing vehicles there. He hoards vehicles as well. And he had a half a dozen vehicles out front, and the neighbors were complaining to the police. And the police did go down there and contact the owner of their property and tell him that he was going to get fined $100 a day. And he made an agreement with him that he would put him inside the building or out behind the building where you couldn't see him. So I do know that there are instances in town and this was fairly recent, on a fairly regular basis where it's mostly the neighbors complaining, saying this guy's got half a dozen junks out behind the house and they're right in my backyard. Then the police take action when people start calling up and complaining about it. And they have some success with getting people to move their vehicles out of the way.
See, now I wonder if that property, I wonder if that's zoned commercial or industrial. You know, because I mean, I could see in in one of those situations where you may have outside storage containers and things like that where you need to put things in. And I'm certainly not opposed to that, but even this guy, if he's got 10 junk cars on his lot and they're not registered, then he can't have them there.
No, he can't. It doesn't make any difference what it's zoned. There is nowhere in town where more than 2 unregistered motor vehicles are allowed. Doesn't make any difference if it's business, green business, industrial, commercial. There's no delineation in the zoning bylaws that allows that to be on any piece of property unless you're running a junkyard, unless you're running a secondhand business. But then the license to get that is pretty complicated and pretty strict.
Okay.
Even if they're garaged?
If they're garaged, if they're out of sight, then that's okay. If you have them inside, then that's all right. They just can't be
Okay,
out.
well, and that gets back to my comment about in the open versus enclosed.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I've got that marked off. And now, do you think is 2 unregistered motor vehicles too many or not enough?
I think that 2 is acceptable to me. I would think any more than that, it's really starting to get an eyesore. I almost think it would be on a case by case basis. I mean, if you had 2 vehicles that were on tires sitting side by side, you were trying to make one good one out of the 2 of them, that's one thing. But if you jack them up and put them on cinder blocks, you know, and took the doors and the hood off of them, then 2 would be too many. But I don't know what the answer to that is, Bill.
Okay. Yeah, and again, I think whether it's right or wrong, it also depends where you are. You know, we have a situation right now down on Puffer Street, right next to the DPW, where the folks over there have turned the DPW into their personal parking lot while they're working on cars across the street. And that situation you talked about, Dave, was exactly what was going on. They had 2 cars jacked up there, all ripped apart, I guess trying to take 2 of them and turn it into one. And if you went down there right now, there'd be 3 of their cars parked on the DPW property. You know, and for me, that's a huge problem because what if everybody wants to park their car down there?
Can't they just be evicted?
Well, again, I've brought it to a couple of people's attentions, and so far I got, bupkis. So I'm going to keep bringing it up until somebody does something about it. So I like I said, just send them a letter and tell them that here's the bylaw. In fact, I even told them, I said, I just looked at the bylaw. I'll give you all the information. Just send them a letter and tell them you can't park your car here. You got 10 days. You can't park it here.
Well, how about just saying, this isn't your property, get the hell off?
Yeah, no, listen, I'm on board with that, but so far I haven't been able to make any progress on that. So I'm gonna put that on the task list.
Yeah.
Okay, next up, 24, enforcement for non-criminal disposition. And I don't think there's anything we're gonna do with this one. That basically just prescribes what the process is if you have to take an enforcement action, a non-criminal nature, how it works and what's going to happen. And I'm pretty sure that's driven by MGL. So.
Well, it is. I mean, the reference is in, a lot of our other bylaws. The only way you can take someone, enforce it is through Superior Court, blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, it is what it is.
Yep. Okay, then let's move on to the next one, 25, the street address numbering. And, that's a planning board deal. I'm not sure. I looked it over. It's like, I got nothing here.
But, and that was my comment. Yeah, again, as you know, I've been going through all the bylaws and redlining our collective comments. And, I simply said, refer to planning board.
Yeah.
Can you call me back in about
For-
half a minute?
for review revision. And,
Okay.
it's nothing we can do.
please, if you don't mind. Thank
And
you.
that's, well, that was amended in 2010, so it's not that old. All right, next up, 26. Is that the one you're trying to put a bullet in, Marshall? 26, the wetland protection?
No, no, it isn't. That one, we revised it just a couple of years ago.
Okay.
There may be some minor edits, but again, I simply said, refer to Conservation Commission for review and potential revision. It's not something I think any of us can, go through. It's just something we need to pass to the Concom and let them.
So what's the one you're trying to make go away?
It's the Wetlands and Watershed and Wetlands Protection District, which
Okay,
is a zoning thing. It's not a general bylaw thing.
okay,
And it's based on, it's hard to believe, but it's based on elevations. And again, this was established back in the 70s. For what reason, I don't know. But it's been a cause of controversy, and it's kind of counterproductive to the Conservation Commission's authority under the State Wetlands Protection Act. So it needs to go away.
all right, so, and I know it's a little bit off topic, but are we gonna see that for the fall?
God willing.
Okay, what is it held up in legal or something, or what's the,
No, because it was also linked with other water supply protection changes, which were not completed in time for the recent town meeting.
okay, all right.
Because
that's good.
just to say that deletion of that district that I'm talking about has ramifications elsewhere in the zoning bylaw.
Got it.
There are references in various sections, so it needs to be more thoroughly vetted before we, but yeah, in the fall, I certainly hope to be there.
All right, very good. Okay, next up is gonna be personnel. And I gotta tell you, I'm just interested in giving this a big, yeah, can't help you with this one either, so.
But why
I
is
think-
it, yeah, why isn't this a handbook, a personal why is it even in the bylaws? Shouldn't this be a part of the, I've had a company for 30, 40 years, I have a handbook. And a handbook of vacations. So I'm not sure why this is in our bylaw. Is everybody think, oh yeah, I guess, again, general code said, yeah, you should have that in there. I don't know why it's in here. Anybody know?
I think that's a great observation. I hadn't thought about that, but it seems to be a perfectly reasonable question because, again, why is it a bylaw versus just having a
Yeah, and
personnel handbook?
if you look at our 30-something chapters here, there are two chapters, the rules and regs for municipal sewer collection. That's 36 pages, and then this personnel one is 31 pages. Every other bylaw that's listed is 1 to 5 pages. So 31 pages to describe something like this. I'm surprised that I'm surprised that it's in this. So I'm doing the same thing. I went through it and I went, okay, I understand. These are usually things that are voted on, and if there someone might come to the town. Oh yeah, I like this, and I get 12 days of vacation. I mean, I don't see how it's applicable here. So I'll stop there. But it's 31 pages. I think it should be somewhere else. So
it raises the question though of how do you undo a bylaw?
oh, okay.
And there must be some way of doing it.
Yeah, I think the general code's a good. Yeah, that's we asked.
But I don't know how you do it.
You know what? It may be just as simple as going to town meeting and say, hey, we want to get rid of this bylaw.
Well,
I mean, for
okay, that's
something
true.
like this, because you could, again, I'm just shooting from the hip here, but you say we want to eliminate, chapter 27 personnel bylaw and convert that into a personnel handbook under the control of the town administrator or, something like that.
No, you're right. Now that I think of it, there is precedence for that. because I think the last one, paid vacations for town employees, I think that was deleted.
Yeah, it says right at the bottom, it's referenced.
And so
Yeah.
via town meeting, you can do away with it and, quote, transfer it to another.
Yeah, reinvent it somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So that's possible. So some of these don't, or are thought to belong maybe not as a bylaw, but someplace else.
Well, two people could probably answer it really quick, Brian and then Deb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Legal might say, yeah, maybe there's a legal reason it has to be in there. I don't know that. And then Brian would be, yeah, my past jobs, this is a handbook. It
Mhm.
should
Yeah,
be like-
yeah.
So I think those could be handled pretty quickly.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
because, as I was saying earlier, if we're gonna make this go away, then I don't want to give that to general code as to be part of the recodification process
Right,
if we know it's going away.
Yep.
Well,
Good point.
No, I think between Deb and Brian, getting an opinion, and if they think that it, can go someplace else, and we should propose it.
I'll get an answer.
It be
I'll get an answer.
deleted.
Yeah, no, 120 pages goes, 30 minus 30.
Yeah, yeah.
80 to 90 pages. Plus, I think there's other stuff in here that they're going to end up getting rid of. But yeah, okay. So is
Well, I
that
mean-
something, Bill, you would do? Just
Yep, I already wrote it down. I will reach out to both those people and now that I'm the chairman, I can call town council without having to check with anybody. So,
Yeah, right, good.
so I'll reach out to her and see what her thoughts are.
But it's similar to my somewhat retrospective comments with all the sewer stuff. I mean, I think that could be drastically reduced, much of that deleted. Just maintain the bylaw, but then refer to some other either rule or regulation, but all that verbiage, 36 pages of whatever, doesn't need to be there.
Yeah, because it's all driven by MGL, right?
Yeah, I
The
mean,
vast
it's,
majority of it, yeah.
yeah. So to spell it all out is
Yeah, it's painful.
painful. Yes, painful.
Okay.
well, that's part of what we're doing. So,
Yeah.
it would be great. We could get rid of 60 pages of this. Oh, wow. I mean, again, we're trying to make it easy for people to come in, do work in the town, and easy for us as we, try to uphold laws and,
Yeah,
work in the town.
Well,
So,
plus, there may be things we want to add. So it's not like we're going to make it more expansive. We'll still be able to reduce it in volume, but get more content in there that may be more applicable to what we're trying to do. Okay, then next up, low impact development bylaw. And I got to tell you, I took a pass on this one too, because that's a planning board deal, right?
it is a
That's
planning
not-
board deal, and it's a conservation commission deal, and actually it's a ZBA deal, because under the bylaw, the planning board can refer for opinion and or administration, the proposed actions to the Concom or the ZBA. However, the biggest problem with the bylaw at the moment is that there are rules and regulations for quote unquote simplified actions, which are relatively minor, but there's no rules and regulations for non-simplified activities, and therefore some of the most or potentially egregious actions, there's no protocol or regulation that sets forth how the planning board or anybody else deals with such things. And so, and I could cite examples, but I prefer
So
not to.
are you saying it needs to be rewritten or another?
No,
another
it
one
needs to be
incorporated?
supplemented. It needs to
Yeah.
be supplemented. I mean, what the planning board has done for quote simplified low impact development projects needs to be duplicated for non-simplified. In other words, the more involved projects.
So what was that called? Non-simplified what?
Well, there's low impact development and then there's simplified low impact development. Simplified is meant to be, you're adding a deck, you're adding a shed, maybe a swimming pool, whatever.
Yeah.
But then there are other projects where, you're leveling the site right now in anticipation of future development. Well, it's not a shed, it's not a pool, it's not a deck, it's not any of the activities that fall under the simplified. So right now, there are no rules and regs which encompass such activities, and there needs to be, which is why, unfortunately, I think such actions are not enforced because there's no rules and regs to enforce
Yeah.
them. And I've tried to explain that to Roger and company way back when on certain things, but it's just something that needs to be done.
So somebody somewhere probably has already done it.
Yeah,
Another town or something like that.
And
so.
basically, it's just a matter of taking the existing simplified rules and regs and changing some words here or there to make them apply to actions which are not simplified. It's not complicated.
I was working on a project this afternoon for the select board meeting on Monday. And I've been working on it for a couple of days and I won't give you the details on it, but I was in looking at other towns for this specific situation. And I found some things and I printed them out. And it was 3 towns and all over the state. Almost every word was exact. So it was like verbatim, line after line after line. So I don't feel guilty at all about going into other towns and stuff like that.
No.
If somebody's got it done in all the works that said, yep, this is going to work. You change the word, you change it to Ashburnham, you make a couple modifications, you say, here we go.
Right. It's just something that obviously needs to be fixed.
Okay. So generally speaking, though, Marshall, from your perspective, this is in pretty good shape right now with, and not to minimize what you're talking about, but that's the biggest blatant omission.
That's correct. It's an omission. There's nothing wrong with what's there. It's just that it needs to be added to.
All right, good. Then I put that down as well. Then let's jump to 29, which is the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. I know we just appointed some people to this committee because it didn't have anybody, but I got to tell you, I was astounded with what this thing says and what they can do and what they can't do. And it's like, wow, that's a fair amount. Almost like the Board of Health's got, extraordinary powers. It's like, man, this Affordable House Trust has got some juice too. And I'm not sure why.
And I mean, to whom would you refer that for review and revision?
Yeah, well, again, it wouldn't be the trust folks because they literally have just started and I'm sure they don't have much experience with any of this stuff. So I don't know. I guess it would be, I know there's some references in here, as there always are, to Mass General Law. So, maybe a lot of it's driven by that, as that the state has said, here's the, the parameters they can work in. It just, when you start talking about being able to receive money and own property and transfer property and do things like that. I mean, some of them require Board of Selectmen and town meeting approval, but that's still, it's almost like a development corporation that you set up within a town that has all the powers to do something like that for industrial and commercial development.
Right.
And they're an independent authority, but I just didn't see affordable housing as coming under that type of a situation, but I guess I'm wrong.
Well, my other comment was that you know, the town has a variety of trust funds.
We do.
Why is this the only one that has a bylaw related to it?
Yeah, and I don't think there's any money. I don't know if there's an affordable housing trust fund that actually exists. I don't have a listing of the trust. I've seen it.
I don't know,
I've seen it, and I don't remember seeing that one, but that doesn't mean it's not there.
but,
So,
you know, again, you know, you look at the annual reports and there's a list of all the trust funds and I just, gee,
so
This is-
I've made a note to myself to contact legal on this as well, to try to get some background as to, you know, the origins of it. And I guess we have to have it because we have a committee that goes with it, but I'd just be interested in knowing the history of it and how it got to this point.
yeah.
Is everybody okay with that?
And you know, maybe this is another one that might be transferred to a non-bylaw related status. I don't know.
Okay, well, let's move on to 30, which is the right to farm bylaw. Anybody have anything on that one?
I just wrote legal, you know, the legalese, you know, someone needs to review this from a.
I mean, it was relatively recently passed. I don't know.
You know, I'm gonna reach out to Kirby Lacy, who's the head of the ag, and you
Well,
know,
that's it. The Ag Commission would be the one.
he's pretty up to speed on a lot of this stuff. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna reach out to her and see what she can tell me about it. And, you know, in her opinion, is it a good thing, a bad thing? Does it need to? I'm not saying this because it's funny. All I know is that at least a half a dozen times in the last 4 years, I've had them complaining to me that we don't have the right to farm signs up. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, we're buy the signs, we'll get them put up, but nobody's
Yeah, I mean,
pulled that off yet.
you see it as you drive.
Yeah,
And you enter a different town, there's a you know, a sign that says right to farm community.
yeah.
It's like, whatever.
All right, then I don't think we should spend much time on this. I'll reach out to Ag and see what
Yeah,
what their feedback is, and I'll make note of that and get back to everybody.
yep.
Okay, next up, 31 departmental revolving funds. There's only 3 of them. This was recently done in 2018. I don't think there's anything we can do there. I mean, for a long time, it was just a brief side story. I fought to get revolving funds eliminated for years on the advisory board. And then we needed one for the economic development. I was able to get the first one back. So it was a little bit hypocritical on my part to do it. And now, you know, there's a couple others that have been put in place, but I mean, there used to be one for the copier machine at the library. So it's, anyway,
There are rules and regulations governing the administration of revolving funds. I mean, don't they have to be voted on annually
they do.
and
Yep.
an amount designated? How much?
Yeah,
of
we just
them-
did that. We just did that. There's you statutorily have to put a limit in. You
Yeah,
have to be voted in every year and you can't.
okay,
Like the one for economic development is for the banner program because they have money coming in and there's expenditures that go specifically for that. I think their limit is $10,000. So,
Okay,
yes, that's exactly
so,
right.
so we do that.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep, we do. Okay. Yeah, the next one, payment agreements for overdue taxes. Not touching that either. Again, I'll talk to Brian and have him review that and see what his thoughts are.
again, I don't know why that has to be a bylaw, but
Yeah, hopefully Debbie will be able to answer some of those general questions like that. It's like, why does this have to be? Maybe it's got to be here because there's no place else to put it. As far as generally can't be a zoning bylaw, so, but we'll see. Anybody have anything on overdue taxes?
No.
We have a few big ones out there we're trying to collect on, I can tell you that.
Okay. No, that again, that was another referral to the select board and town administrator and to Deb.
Okay,
I mean-
perfect.
I mean, again, I question why it has to be a bylaw, but
Okay, that completes our review of the general bylaws. Perfect.
yeah, because the paid vacations for town employees was deleted.
Right. So I guess the question I have, if it's deleted, why is it here?
Well, first of all, why is it at the end when it's numbered 14?
Oh, that's even a better point.
It needs to go up and say deleted. I think it's a matter of following a paper trail. In other words, you can't go from 13 to 15. You're going to wonder, well, what happened to 14? What was it? And why isn't it here? Why isn't it here?
And we have a couple of examples of that where we've skipped chapters, so.
Right. And so that needs to be.
There's got to be a better protocol that general code has to be able to deal with it and manage it so that, I guess you don't want to lose the historical reference to it so that you knew it
No.
existed, but it went away. But they've got to be able to store them someplace else in the document.
No, after each bylaw, there needs to be an adoption, an amendment and or revision and or a repeal date so that one can follow the breadcrumbs from beginning to end.
Yeah, because when we get this done, when we renumber, there's going to be a whole section on, formally,
Exactly.
chapter X,
Yeah,
X, I, V, so.
Yeah.
So you can follow the breadcrumbs, you're right, so, okay. All right, so I guess the next question I have is, do we want to start going through the zoning bylaws next, or what's your preference? What do you think we should do?
Zoning bylaws obviously represent or are a different animal altogether. I think we can look at them, but I'm not sure how far we can get in actually revising them.
Yeah, I think it's really important that we look at them. So we can honestly say that we've reviewed it and looked at it. But I think early on in the process, that was one of the things we talked about is that we collectively probably don't have the expertise to deal with some of the situations that we're going to find ourselves. But I think we probably should review them, kind of do the same thing, whether it's penalties or this or that, or at least have some working knowledge of what's in there. And then and it'll take us a while to get through those. And then by then, general code will be on board and we can, maybe we'll see what we do with it with them.
I know that from experience, Bill, there's more than one zoning bylaw that's, if not difficult to enforce, almost impossible to figure out. So that there's no doubt about it. There are, in my opinion, that there's some zoning bylaws that need to be tweaked. And certainly what I would like to do is make note of those particular ones that some of the other board members have brought it to my attention as well while we're going through them, so that we could ask general code, how do we deal with this, and what have other towns done in this situation. So there will be some specific bylaws that I would like to address and say this is a problem and this is why it's a problem. And maybe we can make some notes for that and then wait and ask general code when they get on board with us about what the legal ramifications and how to deal with changing some of these things so that they're workable.
No, that's perfect, Dave. I'm glad you've got some of that information already, because that's going to be a key component. You've obviously been working with it for a bunch of years, and you come across these things and, it'll just save us a whole bunch of time and knowing where some of the pit holes are, or the potholes are.
Yep, thank you.
Well, it's also, unlike the general bylaws, the zoning bylaws are controlled by, the State Zoning Act. And you have to stay within the purview of that. But clearly, we've already identified there are, like the marijuana bylaws, the sign bylaws that are disparate at the moment that need to be consolidated. And there could be other issues.
So without going through and specifically looking at them, if I said, let's do section 1, general bylaws, which is essentially 5 bylaws for the next meeting, does that seem to be too heavy of a lift?
Of the zoning bylaws?
Yeah.
You said, I have it in front of me. Can we start with this? I have a electronic copy sent to me and it's dated or revised May 6, 2014. Is that the correct one for the zoning bylaws?
Well, that's the one I have.
Okay,
That's-
no, if we're gonna spend 2 weeks to review, I want to make sure I got the right
Yeah.
thing in hand.
That I have the same one.
Okay, so we in agreement, that's what we're gonna review?
I believe that's it. Yeah, that was what was given to me as well. So
And when I look at the first chapters, or sections 1, 2, 3, 4 are 24 pages. Section
Right.
5 is 26 to 96, is almost 70 pages.
oh, okay.
So sections, do you want to go sections 1 through 4, that's 24 pages?
That's more reasonable because we're not going to make it through the other one.
Right, the other one alone might be for the next meeting itself. But again, let's see what we run into, just like what we just did. 24 pages, and we're meeting next week, right?
Yeah, we're going to meet next
Yeah.
week.
I
And
can
then
tell you
we'll-
that zoning bylaw book is the most recent one that the town has available, but it's not the most up-to-date one. There's changes that have been made to the zoning bylaws that are not in.
Well, this is good that you're on the committee. Yeah, we're all involved in something, so that's good. I guess if it's something really heavy, we don't want to miss that. So, Bill, what do you want to do? Dave's made a statement that not everything's in this one. What?
Dave, do you know everything that's not in here?
Well, I couldn't quote it verbatim off the top of my head, but I'm pretty knowledgeable about the whole thing. Yeah.
Okay. Because
So-
the reason I ask is, if you don't know, who the hell are we going to ask?
Right.
Because again, the town clerk's not going to know, I'll ask her, but I don't know.
Dave,
I
are
would
you,
think that,
are you saying that this revised May 6, 2014 is not the most recent?
No, it's not. There's been changes to the general zoning that's not in there. You
And
have to
so-
find it, but you have to look for it.
And so this was 7 years ago, almost to the day. I guess the question that we're all asking is, why are we looking at this? And where's the publication that says revised, January 1st, 2021?
well, I think the answer is very simple. There isn't one.
There isn't one.
Yeah.
So
Well, why not?
Yeah.
Which is, well, that's why we're here. Yeah. So then let's do this, because I know we're past the appointed hour here and I don't want to tie people up. So I will make it, obviously Dave's got a wealth of knowledge on this. I'll make it a point to speak with Heather Rusniak on a land use, who deals with this on a regular basis too. She may have some specific instances that she knows that aren't in here, and we'll just have to start putting it together. That's all. We'll do, like Glenn had said, we'll do section 1 through 4 for next meeting. And I'll see what I can gather up between, that today and next week. And yeah.
Just to summarize, Dave, are there sections missing, or there's been changes within the section?
No, there's just little things here and there that have been
Okay,
changed.
that's good. So there's no additional sections. The changes are, some things were voted, some things changed within the existing sections.
Oh, no, it's not huge segments missing like that. It's little phrases here and there that haven't been updated, but
Okay,
it's,
all right.
Yeah, because like the general bylaw where like the zoning bylaw is nowhere. I mean, so that's a whole bylaw that's missing. So
Yeah.
if it's that's actually more tenable than the other situation. But again, I'll ask Heather and see if she can give us some direction on some things that we need to look at, and we'll just have to plod along, see what we can come up
Yeah,
with.
I will say it's not enormous things that are missing or been added that are mind altering. It's just there's little verbiage here and there that hasn't been addressed. No, well, as you know, looking at it, Bill, there's been no one that's, as zoning laws have changed, there's been no one in charge of typing them up and bringing them up to date. It's just, there was no one doing it, so it's.
Yeah, I
So,
guess-
so if someone comes into the community and wants to do X, Y, Z, and they look at this and, you know, they formulate their plan and then they're reminded by
Yeah,
the zoning enforcement officer that good effort, but try again.
yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
to that point, I mean, we really, so we do the 24, nothing, we're not getting paid, we're free. So this isn't costing.
Yeah.
General code, we really should go through this and make it right so that general code gets the right bylaw or not information that's missing, right? That's our intent.
Well, and that's one of the first things they're asking for is that they sent us a document and said, okay, this is what we have. Is this everything?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so they're saying the same thing. You got to give us all the information coming out of the gate, or you know,
Right.
again, you can fix anything. It's going to cost you more money to fix it.
Right.
You know, if you miss it the first time around. So,
Okay.
that's,
But at least they should start with an accurate accounting of what we have.
exactly.
Would Dave have more, would it make more sense that Dave review this versus Heather? I mean, how is Heather or any
Well,
admin gonna
no,
really?
I'm only going to speak to Heather because, you know, she's the secretary down there. And again, just from dealing with on a day-to-day basis, I'm sure she's got some knowledge that she's storing there of things that have popped up. It's like, you should look at this, or this is a problem. And,
Yeah.
you know, she may have notes in a book down there in her book. She may have notes and stuff written in there that say, you know, here's the change, that kind of stuff. And if that's the case, then I'll get a copy of her book and scan it in and, you know, send that out to everybody. So we're working with something more to date.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the only other way to do it is to start at the annual town meeting in 2014 and go through all the special and annual meetings and see what has transpired since May 6th. And obviously, if it happened after that date, it's new and therefore not included.
Yeah. Is that something that's a service that the town hall staff can provide, that, you know, 7 years, and maybe it's not that bad. In 7 years, maybe there haven't been that many change. And David sort of alluded to that. It's small stuff. It might not be a big job. So Bill, I'm just, you know,
Yeah, but
ask
who's
her.
Who's going to do that?
I'm
But that's what I'm
gonna
asking.
this is being recorded, and I'm eventually going to regret saying this,
Don't say it. No.
but you got a better chance of seeing Jesus.
Yeah.
It's just there isn't, you know, the bandwidth doesn't exist.
Okay.
down
Or,
there.
or,
All right.
or
the
a town
expertise.
planner.
Yeah, or a town planner. Yeah, which that's not dead yet, Marshall.
Okay,
That's
Thank
not
you.
dead yet.
Thank you.
Believe me, it's not
Yeah.
dead. It may be on life support, but it's not dead. So,
okay.
okay, so I appreciate everybody's time. I'm going to make a motion that we adjourn at 7:07. Would anybody like to second that?
I second it, Glenn Hathaway.
All right, and I'll call the roll. Bill Johnson, yes. Glenn Hathaway,
Yes.
Dave Perry,
Yes.
Marshall Dennis.
Yes,
Thanks, gentlemen. Enjoy the evening.
you too.
Good night, guys.
See ya.
Yeah.
Yep.